What's going on, YouTube? Hope y'all having a great week. I am back with another tier list, and y'all, I'm really excited about this one. Now, we've talked about the most viable weapon in Apex Legends. We've also talked about the most viable legends in Season 10. We've even ranked the thickest legend in Apex Legends. But today we're covering a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. Lore. That's right, we are ranking the legends based on who has the best lore in Season 10 of Apex Legends. Apex already has some of the richest lore of any battle royale in the market right now, so this is bound to be an interesting one. As always, if you like this video, be sure to let me know down below. Like this video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, share the video, hit that notification bell. And without further ado, I'm Brad from Last Call Gaming. Let's tap into it. As per usual, the brief disclaimer, these are my opinion and you are very free to agree or disagree. All I ask is that if you do disagree, keep it classy in the comments. Also, I'm not gonna go super in depth with each legend's lore. I'm just gonna cover the basics. Otherwise, this video would be 2 hours long. However, the Apex lore is super rich and very interesting to me. So if it's something you'd be interested in, let me know down in the comments and I will do a full lore breakdown in a separate video. Now let's get started. I'm not gonna go crazy with the tiers this time. It's just S through F, nothing really specific there. Now, starting with Bangalore. Bangalore is our first real Titanfall tie-in right off the bat. She was an IMC soldier who fought in the Frontier War, and she lost her brother after the war ended. She crash landed in the Outlands and now uses the Apex games as a means to make money to get home and search for her brother, who she still believes is alive. She's also got this weird like love triangle thing going on with like Valk and Loba, and canonically it's very interesting and I'm into it. However, she doesn't have that deep of a lore compared to some of the other legends. For that reason, she's gonna be in a nice solid C tier for me. C tier is gonna be solid middle of the road for this, all right? I think I'm gonna reserve S tier for the richest and most impactful of the lore today. Bloodhound. So, not gonna lie, I fell down a deep rabbit hole and watched all the cinematics last night. Bloodhound's backstory is very interesting. Their father was killed in the Deep Freeze event that actually gave us the original World's Edge. And they were raised effectively in like a Norse tribe that shunned technology. Now, ultimately, they would go on to convince their people that there is some overlap between technology and the old ways, and it's a really heartwarming story. However, in terms of the overarching lore of the Apex games, Bloodhound doesn't have that huge of an impact, and for that reason, I'm gonna give them a solid B tier. Slightly more interesting backstory than Bangalore, still not top of the top when it comes to overarching effect on the rest of the story. Caustic, we don't have a lot to go on with him. Alexander Maxwell Knox is what he was born. He is the definition of a mad scientist. He grew up creating pesticides to protect frontier crops and became fascinated with their overall destructive power. This, of course, led him to human experimentation, which is tale as old as time, I guess. After a lab explosion, sort of reminiscent of V for Vendetta, he was presumed dead and went on to play in the Apex games. Now, we know through extended lore that he's become sort of a father figure to Watson in a strange twist of events, and he's gotten his own takeover event in the past, and you know what? There's something to be said about that. However, another one who doesn't have all of his lore quite so fleshed out yet, and for that reason, I'm gonna put him in D tier. Moving on to Crypto. Crypto's a very interesting one because Crypto, I think, arguably has some of the biggest impact on the Apex games as a whole. He hacked the games. Literally, he literally hacked the games. He's the reason that King's Canyon was overwhelmed by Leviathans and other creatures and basically destroyed. That was all his doing. He hacked the giant tower that used to exist as a POI in King's Canyon, destroying it and causing the Leviathans to take over. And that's not the first time he's hacked the games. Crypto straight up didn't even believe in his own abilities to be a legend, so he hacked himself into the system to make himself a legend. That in and of its own right is really cool. Tie that in with his close relationship with Watson, someone whom she trusts and whom he rejected, and we are left with one of the richest characters in the game in terms of lore. And for that reason, Crypto goes S tier right now. My boy Fusey. I'm never gonna stop doing that accent. I really like Fuse's backstory. It's like Mad Max meets AC/DC. It's super cool. He grew up with his childhood friend Maggie on the planet of Salvo, fitting for an explosives expert. They worked as mercenaries and fought in the planet's blood sport, the Bone Cage. Giggity. Eventually, Fuse's fame and fortune caught up with him, and he wanted to join the Apex games, leaving Mad Maggie behind. And she would not let him go without a fight. So she took his freaking arm off. He went on to see great fame and success in the Apex games. The other legends hate him. It's a very interesting, super rock star story. It doesn't have the biggest effect on the Apex games, though. He did destroy an entire section of King's Canyon. Wasn't his fault, Maggie did it, but still, because of his impact, because of his story being so rich, I'm gonna put him solidly in A tier. Gibbethy, Gibraltar, Gibby, the gentle giant of the Outlands. He was born into a family of search and rescue specialists on the planet Solus. Say that 10 times fast. After he and his boyfriend Nicholas were almost killed in a joyride mudslide motorcycle accident, an accident that severely injured his father when his parents saved them, he dedicated his life to helping and saving other people, which of course led him to Bloodsport. Gibby's thrown his life on the line for so many people, and he's got a pretty solid backstory, and for that reason, I'm actually gonna put him solidly in B tier. He hasn't had a huge impact on the games as a whole, but his lore is very, very good. Space Mommy, our first real tragedy. I have to be careful about this one because I could go on for an hour about Horizon's lore, because it's so deep. Horizon is by far one of the oldest legends in the game, well over 100 years old. She was a scientist trying to solve an energy crisis for Olympus. She had to leave her son behind and travel to the edge of a black hole with her partner, who we eventually learn is Ash from the Titanfall universe, and who betrays her and sends her careening into the event horizon of that black hole. Horizon and her little robotic friend Newt survive this experience and eventually come out of it, only to find that Olympus has changed and everyone she knew and loved, including her son, is gone. It's very sad and incredibly rich, and for that reason, she's going S tier. Lifeline, born to a family of war profiteers. When she learned of the chaos that they caused, she left home and dedicated her life to saving people. She's close childhood friends with Octane, Octavia Silva, and deep down she just wants to make the world a better place. She's another one who doesn't have super in-depth lore right now, and for that reason I am gonna put her in C tier. It's good, but it needs more fleshing out. Loba. So I'm just gonna say it. Loba's origin story is effectively Batman, if Batman became a thief. Her parents were killed by Revenant when she was just a child, and so she grew up a thief. A literal riches to riches story, albeit one where she's hellbent on revenge to avenge her parents' death. Loba found her way into the games by effectively tracking down Revenant to kill him, and upon finding him, realized that killing him would be a favor. Some havoc ensues. She destroys a point of interest on King's Canyon and realizes that she's now trapped in this dilemma. Does she enact her revenge on Revenant, or would this be a favor to him? Pretty solid story. I'm gonna put her right in A tier. All right, Mirage. Mirage's story is so sad I actually have to hold a puppy for this one. So Mirage is the youngest of 4 brothers, all of whom went missing during the Frontier War. His mother was a technological mastermind who pioneered the holopilot technology we've seen in Titanfall and on Mirage's kit. In fact, it's confirmed that Mirage is related to one of the pilots that we meet in the 6-4 in Titanfall. Ironically, Mirage is terrible with technology and actually sort of fears it. Even more ironically, Pathfinder considers Mirage his best friend, which is adorable and kind of sad. Mirage wants nothing more than to be the life of the party and to make his mother proud. And he uses his holopilots to do this. He has a fun little broy connection with Crypto, a relationship with Pathfinder, Wraith, and Rampart, whom he roomed with at one point, and the voice lines that the game gives us as teasers throughout are both very interesting and sad. Mirage's backstory and impact on the games are incredibly solid. Not quite S tier, but better than A tier. So for that reason, Mirage gets his own tier in between, the sad boy tier. He really makes you root for him, I gotta say. Octane. Octane's story is one of my favorites because it's absolutely hilarious. He was born to a pair of pharmaceutical mogul parents who profited off of the Frontier War, similar to Lifeline's parents. Because of this, the two were very close childhood friends. Octane was very high energy and as a result, always bored. And so he shot up pretty frequently with the drugs that his parents created. In the ultimate stunt, he attempted a gauntlet run in the same fashion that the records were set in Titanfall 2. A grenade blew his legs off and Lifeline gave him a new set.
You got new legs. New legs.
Bored with even this craziness, he joined the Apex games and has had a pretty solid role ever since. I love his lore, but it's by no means the most impactful. It's hilarious and entertaining, but not quite top of the tier. And for that reason, he's A tier for me. Pathfinder, arguably the most adorable character in the game. Pathfinder is a repurposed Marvin who has exclusively had one goal in his life: to find who created him. We know that his roots extend all the way back to before the Olympus power crisis. And we know that he has had, at least in some capacity, interaction with almost every single character in the game, which is so insane to me. He doesn't quite understand the purpose of the games. He only does them because he wants to find his creator. And so it doesn't matter who he really kills along the way, as long as he makes friends with them and high-fives them. It's so freaking precious. I love it. He's Mirage's best friend, according to him, and him, Mirage, and Wraith have sort of a buddy cop thing going on, and I love that. I could spend hours on his lore, but I'm not going to. Pathfinder is S tier. S for sweet boy. Rampart. Rampart's another really interesting one. She was a prolific mechanic as a child and in the age of the games. She was another underground gauntlet runner, turned independent business owner, turned Apex legend after Blisk sent a hit squad to test her. She passed with flying colors, was patched up by our beardy boy, and entered the games. At the time of this recording, she's just been given her own town takeover and an entire rework, which makes her actually really fun. That's for another video. But she was roommates with Mirage. She developed the Rampage LMG, has had a huge impact on the weapons of the game, and while she's not top tier, she's pretty darn close. Rampart's lore, is A tier. Revenant, our Simulacrum Assassin, is the oldest legend in the game, being centuries old. He was developed by Hammond Robotics as a murder bot. His personality was uploaded from a hitman who was killed in action, and he's been performing Hammond's dirty deeds for decades. He joined the Apex games in place of the legend he killed on national television, Forge, in season 4. And after killing Loba's parents, realized that he was a simulacrum. He's actually been performing murders for decades under the guise that he thought he was a real person. Now he just wants to end it all, and he's hoping Loba will be the one to do it. He's another legend that's had a very, very solid impact on the games and the lore as a whole. And so for that reason, he is also A tier. Seer, unfortunately, is gonna be our first and I think only F tier applicant. Unfortunately for Seer, his biggest appeal right now is that he is a cursed child and cursed with the powers that he has in the Apex games. He was effectively a pariah his entire life, but other than that, he has no real connection to any of the other legends on this list. He hasn't had a huge impact on the games. His story is sort of a one-off, unfortunately, a solo tale. And it's good, it's good content, it's still interesting, but it doesn't have quite the impact that the rest of the legends on this list do. I am sure that will change as time moves forward, as we add more legends, etc., but for right now, he's kind of got the most shallow of all of the stories. And as they fill it out, this, like I said, this is liable to change, but for right now, he is F tier. Valkyrie. I can't not put Valkyrie in S tier. The daughter of Viper, one of the most feared pilots in the Titanfall universe. She dreamt one day of piloting a Titan of her own and following in her father's footsteps. She spent her life tracking down the man who she blamed for her father's death, Kuben Blisk, who ultimately invited her to the games. As I mentioned earlier, she has sort of a weird love triangle thing going on with both Loba and Bangalore. It's dramatic, it's cool, and her backstory is insanely good. I could spend a whole lot of time on this. I already did a reaction video to the trailer when she was launched. I'll link that up above. Go check that out. But her lore is also S tier. As is, I should say, Watson's. If you want to talk about someone who has had a profound impact on the game, you need to look no further than Watson. The woman who, as a child, developed the ring technology that makes Apex Legends Apex Legends. She literally created the ring. She was born to a scientist, and they lived in the mountains above Kings Canyon. Her mother used to make her Nessie toys. Her father was probably the most proud father of all time. And her reputation was so strong that even Kuben Blisk was willing to lie for her. She had a relationship with Crypto, who rejected her, admittedly, but they are still very close friends. After her father died, she looked to Caustic as a father figure, which is weird. In fact, if all three of them are in Caustic treatment on Kings Canyon, you get a little bit of a dialogue between them. It's super, super cool. She's had a huge impact on the games as a whole, and for that reason, her lore is S tier. And finally, we have Wraith. I am so confused by Wraith's lore. She's interdimensional. The Wraith from our dimension of the game is in a different dimension who she pulled back to be the Wraith that's in our game. It's so weird. She's a former pilot and a science experiment gone horribly, horribly wrong. It's very, very interesting, but she's another one whose impact on the games has not been overly profound despite being interesting. I think it's really, really cool, but the relationship she has a relationship with Bangalore. Bangalore hates her, and it's largely because Wraith is sort of awkward socially and said the wrong thing to Bangalore at the very wrong time. Now, it's true that all that Wraith wanted to do was help, but you know, when you're talking about the death of a family member, that all kind of stuff gets involved. It's a little wacky. Other than that, though, she hasn't had a huge impact on the games. And because of that, I kind of have to put her lore in B tier. It's very interesting. It has a minor impact, but it's not quite as good as everybody else that's above her. It's not quite as fleshed out either. It's still, there's still a whole thing. Like, she has a whole short about it, and it's very, very cool. I suggest you watch that. But for right now, I think B tier is solid. What a deep rabbit hole I've fallen down to get here. And so there we have it, the definitive lore tier list of all the legends in season 10 of Apex Legends. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to let me know down below. If you want to see a full lore breakdown, real in-depth, everything corner to corner of all of the lore we have so far, let me know in the comments down below. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so that you know when new videos go live and when I go live right here on YouTube every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Come check out the stream. Come hang out if you want to interact with me personally. We have a really great community building here, and you're going to have a good time. Until that time, however, thank you guys so very, very much for watching, and until next time, cheers.